Hi, my name's Jen. Welcome to the channel, and today we are going to be talking about one small thing that you can focus on to improve your photography. And today, that one small thing is lines. By the end of this video, you're going to be able to identify different lines that can be used in photography. You're going to identify how they can be used to help your composition, and also be able to assess when they're not working in your photos and why. Now would be a great time to remind you, if you are into creativity, photography, improving your skill set, and learning a few things, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss any videos. I always talk about how there are 4 cornerstones to a powerful image. Just as there are 4 corners to our frame, there are 4 key pillars or key points that hold the structure and the integrity and the power of our photo. First is the idea, 2 is the composition of the photo, 3 is the lighting, and 4th is the final touches, things like editing. And today, talking about lines, we're going to be diving into that second pillar, that second cornerstone of composition, but we're going to look really narrow at just how we use lines in photography. And the reason we're starting with lines is because it's simple to see, it's simple to implement, and it's something that has really high impact and drama on our photos. And if you didn't check out the video that was posted up last week all about black and white photography, go and watch that one, because these 2 videos work really well together. Using the lines framework and applying it to the black and white challenge, you'll be like ready to go. Okay, so lines, there's different types of lines, obviously. If we think back to like when we were a kid in primary school, we know that lines can be looping, they can be wavy or wiggly, they can be like sharp and zigzaggy, they can move in a pace that's really, really fast, or they can be like really sweeping and lulling and calm. Now, our eye gravitates towards lines in photography, and that is why they are so powerful to use. They're either going to work towards your goal, your idea that you had for your picture, or they're going to take it away, take people away from that vision that you had. They're going to be distracting, and you're going to end up with a photo that just doesn't have that impact that you desire. So if we move beyond the shape of lines, if we move beyond the idea of lines being curvy or looping or zigzaggy, and we take that out and we just think of the use of the lines, the implementation, the purpose or the function, not necessarily the structure and what they look like, but how they're put to use. There's a few lines that come up frequently in photography. One of them is parallel lines. We know parallel lines are lines that go side by side. When one shifts, the other shifts. They're not like this, they're not like this. It's a whole math thing. Go back to when you were in like grade 2 and you learned about parallel lines. They're pairs, parallel, 2, and they mirror each other. When we have parallel lines, we can use them by placing them in our frame so that they kind of hug around whatever it is that we want the viewer to look at. The other way lines show up are leading lines. The word lead, if you think about it, has a lot of meaning behind it in terms of a journey that you're gonna go on, or a direction or movement from point A to point B. And in photography, it's exactly the same. Leading lines are lines that move your eye throughout the image. If you have like a big sweeping landscape photo and there's like a little bird or a little, I don't know, butterfly or something, elements that are in the photo can lead your viewer's eye through the picture and right to the butterfly. I'm looking at an imaginary butterfly right now. So what's the point with all of these? They all serve the same purpose, which is to guide the viewer's eye around the picture. We are taking the photo, right? We are creating art, but we also get to be like the storyteller. We get to be the guide on this journey, even if it's only for a few seconds or a few minutes that the person looks at the picture. And so when we utilize lines, we can put different strategies in place that direct the viewer where we want them to go. Because it's our art, it's our picture, we know what our purpose and our intention is, and we don't want people trailing off into other places and missing the whole point. Now, I know we're talking about that second cornerstone in this video. We're talking about the composition. That's important, yes, obviously. The composition needs to go hand in hand with the idea. When we have an idea, then we can make sure that we're using our lines in a way that supports that idea. We have to ask ourselves, what is the idea? What is the point or the purpose of this photo that I'm trying to make? And how can I use lines to help me do that? How do we want the viewer's eye to move around the photo? Where am I gonna put this leading line? If I'm shooting outside and I've got this really nice snippet of light, and I'm gonna show you a picture in a minute where this is utilized. But if I have this really nice snippet of light that's like going along the ground, can I go ask my kid to go stand in that line or like just outside of it in a way that when people look at the image and see this like high contrast slice, it goes whoop, ding, 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 winner to what I want them to look at. I'm gonna show you two pictures here now. We're gonna look at the way lines were utilized, and they're very different. One of them is a photo of my son in his bedroom, and it was more of like a lifestyle type piece where there's no posing. He was like 3, maybe 2 at the time, and little kids are chaotic, and you kind of just have to like go with whatever they're doing. So initially, first we've got the lines of the blinds, like they are horizontal, but they're also going into the background of the image. And because it's a black and white photo, it's really high contrast and you can really see the direction that these lines are creating. It drives us from the front of the picture further back into the image towards my son who's lying on the bed. If we look at his bed and the lines of the top of the frame of the bed, but also the bookshelves that are in the back, you can see that we've created parallel lines in this picture. And the parallel lines create a nice little sandwich to stick his cute little head in. The point of this photo was that I wanted to feature my son, right? There's not much else happening in here. He's looking at the camera, he's got a flashlight, he's shining it at me. And so I had to position myself in the room in a way that, you know, took the lines that already existed and put them to work for me. And I knew that if I had the lines of the blind from the front, the forefront, the foreground of the image pulling me all the way back, it would bring the viewer closer, and that those final 2 parallel lines sort of snatched it in and kept your eye there. Okay, so let's look at this. I took this photo in Havana, and this is travel photography. It's like street photography. Obviously there was this big line of light and shadow going diagonally through the frame, and that was a big feature, obviously because of the high contrast, because of the color, and it just had this like magical feeling to it. So I knew where I needed to position myself. I just had to wait. The next part was literally waiting for someone to be in the right spot. When we look at this picture and we're gonna assess like, okay, where are the lines in this photo? There's a million, okay? There's a lot of lines, but they all work to tell the story, to convey the mood. It's very dramatic, and it pulls your eye right to the man, and I'm assuming his son or the little boy beside him. So we've got the line of the sunlight. That's the first line. If you look on the wall behind these people, there's actually shadow lines going from the doorway right in to the gentleman standing there. And there's the line that then continues of their shadow from their feet out of the image. There's more subtle lines that are in this photo in terms of the top of the buildings, the middle line of the building where there's like balconies and sort of like window boxes hanging out, and then the sun. So it almost splits it up into like 3 sections. We've got like the top part of the building, the lower part of the building, and then the grounds. We really can see how like lines can be literal or they can be implied. So there's the literal line of the light and the sunlight going through the ground. There's the literal line of their shadow, and then there's the implied lines of where the building is, meaning it's not an actual line that we draw, but because of the shape that's out in the surroundings, it's creating a line, and they all count. Whether they're literal lines or implied lines, they all are lines in terms of composition, so they're all going to work for or against your photo. Let's talk about how this can go badly. If we're not mindful about how we use our lines are gonna use us. It sounds dramatic, but it's kind of true. They can lead you away from the subject, and they can also just clutter an image. If there's too many lines going on and your eye is like bing, 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 it's like a pinball machine where it's like, that's movement, but that's like the wrong kind of movement. That's like motion sickness movement. Hot tips for using lines, because what I want you to do is go out and take some photos. My Fuji X-T4, the display screen can actually be turned around so that it's not there, it's covered up. And that's my favorite way to shoot, because when we look through the viewfinder, the first thing you want to do is establish the frame that you're working with. So like look at the four corners, look at the four walls of your image, and then look for lines that exist within those four walls. When we don't do that and we're not looking through the viewfinder and we're looking at like the screen on the back, our brain, as wonderful it is, it can be kind of a pain in the ass. It might tell us that things that are outside of the frame are in there because we can still see it in our peripheral vision. Doesn't matter that we're looking here. We'll see these lines, oh yeah, these lines are working, but they're not actually in the frame. And it sounds so simple. And you're like, I'm not gonna do that. You will. But when you're looking through the viewfinder, you cannot fool yourself into thinking that something's in there that isn't. Look at the four walls, the four corners of the frame that you're working with, and then find all the lines that exist. Are there parallel lines in your setup? Are there leading lines in your setup? Are they sharp lines? Are they jagged? Are they sweeping? And then ask yourself, what is my intention? What is my purpose? What is the idea and the mood and the story that I want to convey? And ask if those lines are working. And if they aren't, you can do what you need to do to remove things. And sometimes we can't remove things from the picture, but we can move ourselves. It can be as simple as just turning, maybe tipping, maybe coming down a little bit, coming in. Move your feet to see how that changes what lines exist where. And then take your photo. Take it and try it a few times. So if you're taking a photo outside, let's say of a flower, move around the flower, shoot from above, shoot sideways, shoot from below, close, far away. See how that changes the lines in your photo. And then when you come back and you look at your pictures on your computer as you're editing, you can see how the lines shifted as you shifted your perspective and how that changed your image. The more we like data collect and create samples of like little micro variations of what we're working with, the more information we have to utilize and like look at and compare to help us determine what we like and what we think is impactful and what we feel good about when we look at it. You know, if you take one picture of said flower with lines, you come back, you're like, nah, that's okay, I like it. But if you have two, you can be like, oh, I really like that one. And you can look at the nuances and go, okay, that's because, you know what, the lines were like a little bit lower in frame. The more we can play and the more we can practice and the more that we can capture with purpose and intention, the more we're gonna be able to assess our own photography, connect with our inner voice and our inner like creative spirit and determine what works for us and what doesn't work for us. I hope this video was helpful. I want you to go out there. I want you to shoot some stuff with lines and get practicing how you can use lines in your photos to tell the story that you're trying to tell. Don't forget, like, subscribe, do all those things. Leave some comments. Let me know you're here. It's lonely out here. Go out there, kick some creative ass, and I will talk to you next time.